message all along has been that there are a lot more options when you're building a house to bring it up to base flood elevation than when you're dealing with a large footprint building. And in the southern part of the county, the primary areas impacted are the gated communities on the north side of 278. So there was questions about, well, what if these conflict with local ARB requirements? And I just, so I think with the fill ordinance, it's getting on the same page and understanding that this is probably will not have an impact on most of the residential properties. It's primarily targeted for these large footprint commercial or industrial buildings. So, but I don't know. I don't know at this point whether it would expedite to pull them apart. That might be a decision that once this gets to, if we're able to get this on the May agenda for natural resources, maybe that's a decision they can make at that point.
Rob, who's the chair of Natural Resources?
It's Alice Howard.
Okay, thank you.
My 2 cents is the fill ordinance and the sea level rise ordinance. It's a lot easier to understand the fill ordinance. You might stand a better chance getting that through. And then some of the local jurisdictions have made exceptions with remodeling and additions as far as the base flood elevations. And that would make it a lot easier from a building standpoint. Sea level rise maybe is a little more difficult to understand, and it certainly encompasses more land and more area. And my 2 cents is it might be harder to get a consensus on that. But like Rob said, we just need to work through it. Did you want to update stormwater while you're
I don't really have a whole lot to report other than, the county adopted the new SoLoco stormwater manual. I believe it was January this year. And so they're now in the process of, applying those new standards to development. There's been a lot of outreach and education within the development community. But, so we're on board with the new ordinance. What I don't have at this point is an update on where the other municipalities stand.
all right? Well, I could reach out to them and get back to us next meeting.
I can tell you for the city, we had referenced the county stormwater manual as ours in our code. So the way we're treating it is that the updating, we're still, even though you've updated, you've got a new one that's still in effect. We may need to clean up the language with a text amendment, but we're treating it as we still adopted the county stormwater manual.
David, can you tell me a little bit about how the city has incorporated both the fill and the coastal resilience into your stormwater plan?
Is that for me, Mike, or for Robert? So
I asked you.
Our stormwater manual is the county stormwater manual. So we've adopted the county stormwater manual. And we've not made any change. We've not made any additions to that.
Okay. Thank you.
Dave, are you saying that updated stormwater, since the county has updated their manual, are you saying that the city in effect has adopted that updated manual as well?
Yeah, I talked to Public Works. That's been the city's position. And I'm trying to remember if we said the county, just the county stormwater manual, or if there's a date with it. If there's a date with it, we probably just need to clean up the language so there's no misunderstandings that there's no misunderstanding that we're using the new stormwater manual.
And in terms of the fill and the coastal resilience, I know with the fill, the city adopted, incorporated some of the requirements into the flood prevention ordinance.
Correct.
Are y'all considering taking up the coastal resilience overlay?
That's a question for the mayor.
Yeah, so we are, but I think given it really needs a countywide impact, I think we're waiting for I think I froze up. Can you hear me okay? I think we're waiting for the county to get it moving and get it through the process before we're going to consider it. And I'll point out the original deal that was made when we passed the Ladies Island plan is that the sewer density ordinance, the rising sea level ordinance, and the fill ordinance would all be approved by the county before we consider making movement on those and the retraction of the growth boundaries. That being said, we have passed our flood ordinance, which takes certain elements of the fill ordinance into consideration, and we'll consider the coastal overlay as soon as the county gets it rolling through their formal processes. But the city doesn't see much sense in passing it within our own jurisdiction by ourselves if no one else is going to do it.
Well, we could understand that. All right. Any more discussion on this? I was going to move on to penny sales tax and pathway projects. And Jennifer Bragg said she would bring us up to speed with that. Are you there?
Here. So on the penny sales tax, in the month of March, a summary and recommendation for the sidewalks and pathways was approved by Public Facilities Committee. It has now been issued on the Beaufort County Penny website under the meetings tab, where the information for the October through November virtual public meeting information is housed. So there is a document there that you can go and look at. We also, with the pathways and sidewalks, have two other virtual meetings taking place right now. One is specifically for the Rebo Road sidewalk. It is from Lenore Drive to near Ron Lane to put in an additional 5-foot sidewalk. That meeting is ongoing through April the 11th. I believe that's the date. And then the other one is the Bluffton Parkway pathway. It's a little over 600 linear feet of additional pathway along Bluffton Parkway near the roundabout, just connected up from Soperton Drive up to the roundabout. That at least keeps people from crossing at an unsignalized intersection to continue moving down along Bluffton Parkway. So those two are underway right now. Once those public meetings expire, we're trying to get to final construction plans to get those two advertised for construction later this year. And both of them do require right-of-way, so we're also in the right-of-way, starting the right-of-way process for both of them. With the other sales tax projects, Airport Frontage Road, phase 1, which is from the US 21 intersection over to, and I always get them confused, it never fails. I believe it's Lost Island is the first one. That's under design. The second component from Lost Island to Little Creek will be pulled back under the main design team for the other access roads. Those two design teams, one is the Davis and Floyd team that will do several of the access roads, and then the Stantec team, which will do the mainline corridor and the Beaufort High School access realignment. Both contracts have been approved. A notice to proceed to enter into design has been issued to both of them. We had a kickoff meeting for both teams in March, so now they're starting to move forward with some of their initial design services, such as surveys, doing some wetland delineations, all of the front end work to truly enter into full preliminary design. So that is underway with both teams. Both of all of those projects have public meetings. The public meetings have closed. We are still working on responses to comments. So any citizen who submitted a written or provided a response or a comment with a physical mailing address, will be issued a written response. Those are still underway for all of them. And then also we have pulled together 2 summary reports of both public meetings. Those will go to the county's public facilities committee in April for their concurrence on both of those. So we're starting to move forward into design on those. And then likewise, we are starting coordination with the school district. We've got 2 different meetings upcoming with the school district, one on April the 8th. The other one, I believe, Brittany, was April 21st. So we will discuss with them the Beaufort High School access realignment, as well as the Ladies Island Middle School access road. So we will coordinate with them on both of those projects. Any questions?
When was that last meeting for the middle school access and the other one? When are you going to be discussing that?
There are 2 of them. One is April the 8th, and then the other one, I believe, is April the 21st, and it's to 2 different groups within the school district.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead. Carol.
Okay, now it's letting me, it wouldn't let me unmute there for a second. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify what those 2 meetings were. So that first meeting is with the Beaufort High School Improvement Council on April the 8th. And the second meeting is with the Beaufort County School Board's Operations Committee. So that's a subcommittee of the board. And I would say that some of the changes we weren't aware of that are now being presented. And so that will be a topic for discussion.
Okay. We're looking forward to it.
Are those public or closed meetings?
They are both public meetings, yes. The SIC meeting is virtual, and I know the operations meeting has a virtual component, but they may also be meeting in person.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Well, I know you're out there working. I see survey crews all over the place. I'm getting a lot of phone calls on it, particularly over there on Sunset. Anyway, let me give you an update on Whitehall if we're finished with the penny sales tax roads update. All right. So Whitehall is in the permitting process and moving through with Carolina engineers. They're getting their approvals from Beaufort, Jasper Water and Sewer, and the city. They anticipate being permitted to start development in early June. And they are ready to start construction immediately. And my guess is once they get approved, some of the development areas, particularly on Harborview, may be able to start before all the infrastructure's in on the full development because they feed off of Harborview. So far, they've sold 1 commercial lot, 1 residential lot, and got reservations on 8. So there's only 30 lots now in the whole development. They took the 4 small cottages and made those into building lots so they could save some trees. So they are moving forward, and hopefully they'll stay on schedule. So,
Alan. So where are you getting this information?
Right from Michael Mark and Levin. That's just his, he's the salesman, he's developing it.
Well, it's curious because the sketch plan got approved by the Planning Commission. The next step was for a preliminary plat, which they haven't had. And then once they create the infrastructure, then they can file for a final plat. You cannot sell lots till you have a final plat.
Well, they may have reservations on them, you know.
Okay.
That's maybe I should have said sell, but actually, they must have reservations on at least 2 where they've gotten down payments and 8 reservations on the other ones. And I suspect, like most developers, they're very optimistic about their pace, but you would know because you're the city, you know, it's going to have to come through you. So
Let's hope it does.
What's the definition of sell?
Yeah.
well, it's pretty interesting. That one commercial lot sold for quite a large amount of money up front. So I think, well, I guess my report should say things are very positive over there. They've reduced the density by 2 more houses. We think there's a big demand over there for that product, and I think it's been a huge success for improving the entrance to Ladies Island. And I want to thank Jason and Mike Tomey and Paul Buttar for all the hard work and all the other people that helped, because it's very encouraging to see developers do that.
Additionally, any commercial improvements would have to go in front of the design review board for public comment and approval by the body. And that hasn't occurred either.
Correct. That's correct.
So I'm thinking that their June date is very. That's where they have all their paperwork in and can try to get something going, and then start the work. But probably be 2 months or 3 months after that. What I'm anticipating.
Alan, it sounds like, I don't know, if maybe you ought to ask Sam if he might want to just get in touch with David and sit down and have David help him put together a timeline, make sure that he's getting everything done the way he's supposed to.
I can do that right away.
I know Sam doesn't like surprises, so that might be a good idea. I'm sure the city would like to help him as much as they can to make sure he can get his project implemented when he wants to.
Yeah, and I wonder if he was talking about June was maybe working on the outfall and that issue. And I know the Eagle's Nest, he's created or kind of restricted the time that he may be able to do that. So that's the only thing I've heard, Alan, is that, I think the first thing was to get the outfall worked on. So.
Well, I'll just get with Sam and push him a little bit to tell him that don't believe the engineers or the marketers. You better get with the city. All right. You want to talk about the CPT there, Jason Hincher, our new chair?
Hey, Alan. There's a chat going over right now, but can y'all hear me still? Anybody hear me? Yeah.
I can hear you.
Yeah, we cranked the CPC back up last month. Great. We met on the 15th. We're going to meet the third Monday of every month at 10 a.m. at the airport conference room. We are 1 member shy now. Paul Buttar resigned about a month before COVID kind of shut down our in-person meetings. But yes, we are going to continue as a citizen group, advisory group, as well as hopefully a sounding board for some of the projects that are going on Ladies Island. We've started trying to formalize some bylaws, which pretty similar to the LIPA bylaws. We've borrowed a lot from that. Gotten a little bit of pushback on that because there's some people that don't want them to be quite that formal, but we're working our way towards nominating some new members and firming up our structure a little bit. The only stipulation to be a member as it stands right now is to be either a resident of Ladies Island or to own a business on Ladies Island. And I'll be happy to answer any questions. It is an open meeting, so I hope all of you will attend whenever you can. And that's really all I have to say about it.
Hey, Jason, I had one thing. I could not open the file that you had sent me. If you wouldn't mind resending that as a just a regular PDF, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, sir. I'll be happy to do that, Mike.
All right.
So just, sorry, Alan. Jason, if folks are interested in possibly serving as a member of that committee, should they reach out to you or just attend the next meeting, or how should interested people get involved?
Jesse, they're welcome to reach out to me. And like I said before, it is an open meeting. So I would strongly suggest anybody that is interested in what's going on Ladies Island, whether you're on the development side or more on the residential homeowner side, that please come to the meetings. But feel free to contact me either way.
All right. Thank you, Jesse, Jason. I skipped over the Ladies Island Village Center plan that Mike Tomey's been working on so efficiently. So you want to give us a briefing there?
Well, I think we've been talking about it quite a bit in bits and pieces, but just to move forward, we are having great communication with the engineers right now, and with the new engineers coming on board, we're going to try and get something created so that we can be in contact with them as we're moving forward, so that we don't cross paths negatively in what we're trying to accomplish, along with what the engineers are trying to accomplish with their work effort. The plan that you saw here, I'd appreciate it if you don't share that. I think most of the people here have probably seen that on the task force already, but I'm going to be producing another one for the next meeting next week that'll be a little bit more amorphic than this. And hopefully that'll be one that will convey more of a message of what we're trying to accomplish, so that it can be used when we start to talk to people. We have produced a list of the property owners that are proximate to the Ladies Island Village Center that we're trying to work with right now. And we're developing a list of people that already have strong contacts with those individuals, and we'll move forward with that. I asked everybody to come to our next meeting trying to fill out more information about who has strong contacts with different individuals. We're moving forward with also zoning, and I think Jesse, you were going to get me something before the next meeting on some of the zoning aspects. I'm not sure. I had put out a few assignments, and I'm not sure. I haven't heard from anybody yet, so hopefully I'll see something coming back on that.
If I'm remembering correctly, Mike, sorry to interrupt you, but I think you had asked for Rob to look, because are you talking about the spreadsheet that showed the city's zoning and the county zoning kind of
Yes.
side by side?
Yeah. Yes, you're right. I did ask Rob if he could do that. And two things, I guess. And David, that was the other thing, the spreadsheet that I had put together. If you could take a look at the city's, the aspects of the zoning for the city and make sure that those are correct on that spreadsheet. If you don't have it, I'll get it back to you. And then Rob, you were going to do the same thing, and then also try and associate the zonings that the city and the county had were the closest together in terms of what their requirements were, so that I could readjust the spreadsheet to show them side by side. But I think the task force has been doing a great job. We've been moving forward, a lot of good conversation with a lot of people. And I'd like to, we'll move this forward with the consultant, hopefully. And I didn't see that on here, but wanted to ask Rob where we stand with a consultant at this point.
Okay, well, thanks, Mike. So I think most of you know the background in that, we have been speaking for more than a year about a village center master plan. And there's been a lot of concern that the projects, the penny sales tax projects on Ladies Island, are moving forward in the design process, and that they have a great impact, potential to impact the, Ladies Island. And there's a concern about, these projects getting too far ahead and maybe missing some opportunities to make sure that the projects happen in a way that furthers the vision for Ladies Island. So we've been going back and forth with, the task force, with the county engineering department. And so what we are proposing is that, as Jennifer mentioned earlier, the county is engaged with two different design firms to design these projects, Davis and Floyd, and then also Stantec. Stantec, which they're the ones who are hired to look at Sea Island Parkway and the High School Connector Road, they have a full service planning. They're one of these firms that encompasses transportation engineering and planning, and so they have their own planning department. And so we thought it would actually be, it would be good to dovetail off of their efforts, and rather than procure another firm to get involved in the process, to see if we can get Stantec to modify their scope and do a connectivity and planning in front of the design of these projects. We have about a 4 to 6 month window as this very initial design work is happening with the surveying to really provide some input into these projects. So to make a long story short, we put together a proposal, worked back and forth with Stantec. We got a proposal from them with a work program. And so the next step is that, and I contacted Dave Pritchard the other day as to, talk to the city about, making sure that they're on board with this approach as well, and looking at some sort of sharing of the cost for this work. But we feel that this approach in getting a firm involved now in a little bit of more a shortened version of a plan would accomplish so much more just because of the timing. We're going to be getting, this work done prior to these projects getting designed. And we feel that looking at them as a whole and how they impact the community, how they further the vision for Ladies Island will go a long way in making sure that we're getting the best, out of these projects that we can and to work with the community. So that's kind of where we are right now. We're hoping to move forward quickly. We're already engaged with Stantec, so it doesn't mean we have to go through a a heavy procurement process or anything like that.
Rob, was the scope of work that we had produced, mainly Mike and the subcommittee had produced earlier in the year, was that what was used to generate the scope and the proposal with Stantec?
Yes, we did abbreviate a few things. And I would say that the difference, just to give a real quick overview, what we envision is that we would have planners and designers get involved at this point to look at the vision for Ladies Island, to analyze each of these projects and see how they fit with our plans for bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, how they connect the different, local assets like Whitehall Park and Crystal Lake Park, how they can further our redevelopment vision. So they'll be doing all that. And also it will point to whether there are additional connectivity projects that will need to take place in the future. Another thing is that we acknowledge at this point that the 1 cent sales tax money that is going toward the Sea Island Parkway improvements will not nearly be enough, to fund what is needed to be done on that corridor. So this will go a long way in, helping shape the vision for what we want to see done on that corridor and could set us up for future funding sources. What I guess that the main things that we're really not doing with this project, the original Village Center Master Plan, I think, had some very detailed redevelopment proposals for some specific sites. I think we looked at the Marina property, the Ladies Island Shopping Center, the Graves property. We don't anticipate this getting into great detail in those areas, although we will definitely want to engage these property owners. We're not looking at coming up with, conceptual redevelopment proposals for them.
Rob, so I understand it won't get into the weeds on specific parcels, but how about the zoning along the corridor?
That's not a major focus of this. I think if there is if we see a regulatory barrier to furthering the vision, for the Ladies Island corridor, I think that'll be identified. I think that really we have within our local capabilities, we already have a regulatory framework that supports the vision. I think we're kind of looking at identifying where there is inconsistency across the board or where it could be improved, but that's not really a focus of this. But, I think that what we're looking at is our task force to continue the work of looking at the zoning and making recommendations for changes as we see necessary.
Do you have something in writing from Stantec that has the scope and the cost that you could send over to the city for review?
Yes. Yeah. I sent David a copy earlier this week, and
thank you.
So we'll.
Yeah, Mayor, Rob wanted to meet with Bill, and so we're scheduled for Monday, and he sent over, and we can get that forwarded to you as well.
Okay. I mean, I'll be candid and say that, looking at the zoning, kind of taking a holistic approach to the corridor, and really a village master plan exercise, I think was the goal. And from the brief description, it sounds like we're really just talking about transportation planning, whether that's vehicle or pedestrian or bike planning, which no doubt is valuable. But, I'm concerned that we're not going far enough in our planning effort. And so we keep kind of piecemealing this thing when.
Well, I think that, and I agree, but I think that the timing is so crucial. We have a short window of time to really do some planning in front of these projects getting too far along in the design process. And if we wait until we can procure someone, after the next fiscal year, go through the procurement process, write a contract, we're going to be into the fall. And I know that our engineering department, we really want to see these projects moving forward and not delayed. So it's my own personal opinion that maybe we're getting 75% of what we originally hoped for. And with the timing issue, that to me is, that and having a firm involved with the actual design of the projects. We're not looking at a third party coming in, developing community vision and hoping somebody else will carry the torch. This will be the same firm involved in design. I think that those things to me add a lot of value to this that we wouldn't have if we waited for a longer process.
No, Robin, I certainly understand and appreciate the timing of the transportation projects. And you've heard me say that in this forum a number of times, that it's incumbent on this group and the county and the city to get ahead of the transportation projects, because it's not fair to hold those up, which is one of the reasons why we've been sort of screaming for a master plan for a year and a half now. And now we're kind of backed ourselves into this corner. So I'll withhold judgment until I see the actual scope and the cost involved. But I just want to be clear that my initial thought is I have some have some reservations.
You're right. I completely understand. I agree. And I think when Rob presented this to the task force last meeting, of course, we don't have all of the information about pricing and things, but it's a framework. Our understanding is it's a framework to try and not get behind what the engineers are doing on the different roadway projects that are obviously moving ahead more quickly. But it's not a substitute for a master plan. And I think everybody made it clear that we still need to have a master plan consultant on board to do that work effort. And in fact, I was hoping that maybe that could be a parallel effort to this. And we'll just have to wait and see what happens with the county and the city as it goes forward with the costs involved with it.
All right. Well,
And could that proposal be shared with this group, since we have been driving the train? I mean, it probably would have been appropriate for that to have been on the agenda today for review.
Yeah, I mean, we can share it with the group.
how do you want us to get it to?
Carrier pigeon?
I could send it over, to the email group, who received the meeting invite.
And if I could just ask one more clarifying question for you, Mayor Murray, is your concern primarily that the land planning component of Stantec's potential expanded scope would just be too narrow are you concerned about how robust that expanded scope is going to be?
Yeah, exactly. Because I think, I've said before, I think the land planning is extraordinarily important. I know we don't have a lot of greenfield along that corridor, but we have some greenfield, and then we have a number of parcels that are in, near the end of their useful life. And so, speaking for the city, we've got T5 UC zoning along that corridor, and I'm not necessarily sure that that's appropriate. And when we look at the downgrade to T4 in, I'm not sure if that's appropriate either. So I think my hope, and having a baseline understanding of the county zoning along that corridor, I'm not sure if, the zoning as it stands today gets us to what we envision. So looking at transportation, looking at better connectivity is certainly of value, right? So I don't want to discount that. But I do think how that transportation interacts and what we want to see long-term in terms of vision of how that corridor develops as things redevelop, I think is extraordinarily important, especially as transportation projects have to interface with those things. Mike's got a great plan that he's drawn out that shows some buildings, shows some parking lots, that shows the creativity that could happen along the corridor. So I'm glad we're focusing on transportation, but I think the land planning for a very unique Ladies Island, sort of downtown Ladies Island mixed use corridor is not reflected in any of our regulatory documents right now.
And I'm sorry, having been involved in the development of our community development code and the city and our civic master plan, we've had this vision for Ladies Island as a walkable community for the last 20 years. I mean, I've always felt that we have the right regulatory tools. What we don't have is a properly designed roadway, so we're asking people to bring buildings up to the street where, they have a, 4-foot wide sidewalk and a curb and heavily moving traffic. I mean, I don't disagree that, the land use component is important, but I feel that we have a lot of good planning that has been done in the past, through the civic master plan, through the county's development of its community development code. And the Ladies Island plan also has a good framework for what that looks like. So that's why I was a little concerned. I didn't want to, hire a firm and have them kind of reinvent the wheel when we've had this vision for Ladies Island for a long time. So that's why, to me, the greatest impact that we could have at this point is to make sure that these improvements, we've never seen this level of investment in Ladies Island, that they're happening in a way that forwards the vision rather than, create something where we're coming in and saying, oh, I wish we would have, designed this differently, so that's in general why I think the timing is important. But that, I just feel that we have the vision, we have the right tools. They may not be perfectly aligned, but I think that they're, it's not like we have conventional zoning on the islands and we want to have a walkable community. We do have the transect zones and, require buildings to come up to the road. And
No doubt, Rob. I mean, we spent a lot of time and energy visioning. Although I might argue in the civic master plan, we paid very little attention to the Ladies Island corridor. If you read through the plan, there are specific sections to Ladies Island, but they're not nearly as robust as other areas of the city. And while we do have transect zoning, I'll just say again, we've identified T5. The filling station, for example, is T5, which would allow a 5-story, mixed-use office commercial hotel. The downgrade is a T4 neighborhood zoning, which severely limits the commercial that could be developed along the corridor. And so, again, I think, T4 is probably too low density to help us achieve what we want. But T5, going up to a 5-story, large mass scale building is probably too intense. So that's where I push back a little bit. While, yeah, we have a lot of visioning documents, we haven't adequately taken those visioning documents and making sure that the regulatory framework is aligned so that we actually get that product long term.
And I
But
guess,
hey, I'm one guy, so send the proposal over. We'll take a city council and staff will take a very hard look at it. We're very appreciative of the work.
Yeah. Well, let me chime in that we've done this study and got this going so we can get ahead of traffic. But we have been searching for a village center plan and trying to zero in on it. And we do need to focus on that. We really do, Stephen. And we're just trying to see where it can be fit in right now. And while they're doing this traffic work and studies, we want to try to get some of our 2 cents in there. So let's look at the study and see what we can do about focusing on a village center. I think everybody's goal is the same. We just haven't really focused on that. Although we've seen a lot of them over the years. So we'll just have to see what works with what we got to deal with now.
Lastly, I'll add while we're on the subject, I talked to Tom Daniels this week, who's the owner of the Ladies Island Marina. He's very interested in being involved. I guess a number of business and property owners along the corridor have been speaking, and they've formed a kind of an ad hoc group. And Mr. Daniels has agreed to serve as kind of the leader of that group. So hope we'll keep them sort of engaged in the process. I know we will over the coming months.
I met with him this morning. He's going to Maine, but he'll be back, and I'll bring him up to speed, and it certainly will welcome that input from them and Mr. Butler and Lovett and Merritt and Herb Gray and Graham Trask. So, and the Massillon. So all those people will be on that group, and he can head them up.
Mayor, I just want to reiterate, I totally agree with you. I think that I see this as a two-stage effort. The first one to try and stay abreast of what's happening with the development of the roadway systems, but also I'd really like to see a consultant come on board for doing master planning and engage with the task force for as much as we've moved forward already. We don't mean to do the consultants' work for them, but we're going to continue to keep moving forward. And like I said earlier, we'll be starting to address zoning issues in our next task force meeting next week.
All right, any other comment? Well, I'll repeat Mike's. I agree with you. We need to move on to a village center plan, and we'll get past the traffic study right now. There's a lot going on Ladies Island. Of course, I talked about Whitehall. I'll circle back around to Sam Levin and see what he's got to say. Since I'm getting it through Michael Mark. There's a lot going on. Of course, we've got a new park down Sam's Point Road. We got a lot of parks. I'm thinking that's the county doing that, not the city. Green Heath is coming along. I was up in there looking around. It's going to be a very expensive development to bring on, but it's going to be nice. They're going to protect all the trees. All they did was cut the roads in, and they'll be clearing lots individually like we do in many subdivisions. Miller Road will be coming on. I think that'll warrant a close inspection because they'll probably try to clear cut all the trees. And I'm kind of watching that myself. We talked about the consultant study. That was in my comments. So we're over that. Village Center, developing a plan. You covered that, Mr. Mayor Murray. And I see a lot of surveyors all over the place, including on Sunset. I got a couple calls from people about that. It's what's going on. So we know the engineering firms are making progress on developing their plans and getting them going. I would hope that it's really not our job to get that information out, but I think if we can get the community involved in that, once we have a solid plan, it will really help us get a better plan for all of Ladies Island if we bring them online and let them see what we're doing. And I've had a lot of positive feedback from that, where they've gotten in touch with me just because I think I stood up and at some of those meetings when we were talking about the penny sales tax. So the fact that these shareholders on the corridor are getting involved is encouraging, because we do want to have their input. And at the end of the day, they're the ones that are going to invest the money to develop these plans that we might have. So I think that's positive.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to add one thing, if I could. I reiterated to the task force, and I think we're all in agreement. The mission of the task force is to work on the Ladies Island Village Center plan, and it is not to engage in the aspect of the engineering that's going on with either 21 or the access roads, and that we are inputting into the engineers as to what we think might be appropriate for their information to help develop those roadways. But we are not engaged with the general public in any way in making decisions, or with the engineers in making decisions on what actually happens on 21 or the access roads. I think it's important to keep those two issues completely separate and not get into a mix of those two.
Well, I met with Tom today and Herb this morning, both of them, and I said, look, we're separate from them. Here's some printouts of the corridors and stuff. It might be easier for you to understand what's going on. And I emphasize that with them too. And I'm encouraged that they're going to start their own little group and deal with it, because I think that's more beneficial to them. Any other business or comments from anybody? Things we need to work on next time?
Mr. Chairman, it seems to me, if I looked at the Ladies Island Plan implementation schedule in the back of the document that we approved, most things are well underway and have been transferred over to either the CPC that Jason's getting back on track, and high five to Jason for doing that, or county and city staffs, and the transportation issues are sort of moving on their own. So to that point, I'm not sure what our continued charge will be. And so would like to plant the seed, since it is April and the month that hosts Arbor Day. Plant a seed that we need to consider. This was a task force that was supposed to be stood up for a certain purpose. And at the end of that purpose would stand down, and responsibility would transfer back to the Northern Regional Implementation Committee. I know we approved a mandate for the Ladies Island Village Master Plan, and maybe that committee transfers to NERPIC, since Mike Tomey's also the chair of that committee. But I know all of us probably would like to have one less meeting to go to every month. So I just throw it out there for thought, not necessarily discussion today, but maybe over the next couple of months, as some of these things come to conclusion, we can put our mission accomplished flag in the ground and go back to our responsibilities.
I like that sound of that. It looks like most of these items are getting addressed. We can give it a little while longer and let's think about it. It would be a good thing to simplify everything and free up people's time to focus on more responsibilities they have.
Well, just to respond to you, Mayor, most of the people that sit on this committee are also on the task force and have actually been attending the task force meetings. So it's almost a dual-faced committee. And so what you're saying could make a lot of sense.
Thanks, Mike. That rarely happens.
You got my vote too. If there's no other business, we'll adjourn.
Have a great weekend.
You.
Thank you all. We appreciate it.